September 7th, 2016, in Cupertino. Phil Schiller takes the stage and kills a port that had been the global audio standard since 1964, calling the move courage. At that same event, Apple unveiled AirPods for $159. These decisions were not mistakes, they were intentional. Over the next 7 years, Apple would repeat this exact playbook 5 more times. Outrage spread rapidly when the iPhone 7 launched without a headphone jack. Within hours, #NoJack flooded Twitter, peaking at over 1 million mentions in 2 days. Over 300,000 people signed petitions demanding Apple restore the port. Headlines mocked Phil Schiller's claim that it took courage to remove a standard that had lasted more than 50 years. For many, the absence of the jack meant their favorite headphones were suddenly obsolete or required a dongle. The adapter became a symbol of frustration, often lost or broken, and instantly a source of new expense. Apple's official reasoning centered on progress. The company cited water resistance, internal space for a larger battery, and the promise of a wireless future. Every iPhone 7 shipped with Lightning earpods and a free Lightning to 3.5mm adapter, a gesture that softened the blow but did not erase the inconvenience. AirPods, introduced at the same event for $159, launched a new product category. Within a year, AirPods generated $2.5 billion in revenue. By 2020, that number had climbed to $12.1 billion, making them one of Apple's most profitable lines. The Lightning adapter, meanwhile, created a recurring revenue stream of $30 to $40 million per year through Apple's MFI licensing fees, as every third-party accessory required Apple's approval and a cut of the sale. Accessory margins soared. As analyst Horace Didiu later observed, Apple's control over the accessory ecosystem added tens of billions to annual revenue, with the dongle economy alone contributing a measurable boost. The pain of adaptation for users became a windfall for Apple. The removal of the headphone jack set a template, public inconvenience framed as innovation, driving a profitable new ecosystem. This would become a pattern, not an exception. When the iPhone X debuted in 2017, the notch immediately became a lightning rod. Social media sentiment, tracked by Brandwatch and similar firms, showed a split. About 45% of comments were positive, praising the display quality, while roughly 30% were negative, focused on the notch's appearance. The design was widely called a compromise, an awkward solution to the technical demands of Face ID. Yet Apple's messaging insisted the notch was essential, enabling a new era of secure facial recognition and edge-to-edge OLED screens. For 5 years, the notch remained unpopular but unyielding. Then, in 2022, Apple introduced the Dynamic Island on the iPhone 14 Pro. The hardware cutout shrank to a pill shape, but the real change came in software. Dynamic Island turned the fixed black space into an animated, interactive hub for alerts, music, and third-party widgets. Apple described it as a breakthrough in user interaction, a new way to experience iPhone. Analyst estimates suggest the Dynamic Island platform generated around $120 million in incremental App Store revenue in its first year, driven by developers integrating new APIs for live activities and notifications. The move reframed a hardware limitation as a monetizable software feature. John Gruber, a longtime Apple commentator, summed up the shift in one line: "The notch was never about necessity, it was about control." Competitors took notice. Android manufacturers initially copied the notch, then abandoned it in favor of punch-hole and under-display cameras from 2018 to 2020. Apple, by contrast, doubled down, retaining the cutout, then building a software ecosystem around it. The story of the notch and Dynamic Island signals a broader pattern: hardware compromises repackaged as innovation become new platforms for revenue and developer lock-in. Face ID arrived with the iPhone X, introduced as the most secure and advanced authentication ever placed in a smartphone. Apple presented a 1 in a million false accept rate, a claim repeated across marketing and press events. The company described facial recognition as effortless, seamless, and the next logical step beyond Touch ID. Yet for millions of users, that promise unraveled in March 2020 as mask mandates swept across the globe. iPhones failed to unlock in grocery stores, on public transit, and in hospitals. Workarounds precautions, like entering a passcode or lowering a mask, became daily routines. The fix did not arrive until March 14, 2022, with the release of iOS 15.4. For nearly 2 years, users faced friction every time they tried to unlock their phone in public. Apple's decision to replace Touch ID with Face ID was not just about security. The TrueDepth sensor array cost nearly 3 times as much as the fingerprint reader, about $4 per unit compared to $1.50. The extra hardware expense translated into a higher average selling price. Face ID models consistently sold for $50 more than their Touch ID predecessors. That price gap, multiplied across tens of millions of devices, delivered a significant boost to Apple's margins. At the same time, Face ID became a key that unlocked Apple Pay, Apple Card, and Fitness Plus, helping drive an additional $1.2 billion in services revenue in 2022 alone. Marcel Vandenberg, a biometric security researcher at MIT, found that Face ID's reliability dropped sharply when users wore masks, with unlock latency increasing by more than 2 seconds and a measurable uptick in failed attempts. He wrote, "The real-world friction under occlusion is not trivial. Apple's system is optimized for ideal conditions, not pandemics." Internal churn data from Apple suggested a 1.8% increase in device replacement requests during the mask era, indicating that frustration translated into lost sales and customer risk. The delayed software fix reflected a calculated trade-off. Apple prioritized the commercial payoff of Face ID and its integration with high-margin services, even as users endured daily inconvenience. The pattern was clear. Hardware choices that seemed to limit flexibility often served a larger strategy, driving up both device prices and recurring service revenue. For over a decade, Apple's iPhone relied on the proprietary Lightning connector. Introduced in 2012, Lightning replaced the aging 30-pin dock and was promoted as a leap forward in charging and data transfer. Yet, as USB-C became the global standard for smartphones, laptops, and tablets, Apple held its ground. The company's public statements emphasized Lightning's compact design, durability, and the benefits of a single reversible port. What remained unspoken was the financial engine behind the connector. Manufacturers joined the Made for iPhone program, paying royalties estimated at 5 to 7% per accessory. By 2022, analysts calculated that cumulative Made for iPhone licensing had delivered over $5 billion to Apple, with Lightning royalties alone generating hundreds of millions each year. The connector became a gatekeeper, locking users into a closed ecosystem and ensuring that every accessory purchase, from car chargers to headphones, sent a portion of revenue back to Cupertino. Pressure mounted as regulators and consumer groups in Europe criticized the proliferation of incompatible chargers and the resulting e-waste. The turning point came in October 2022, when the EU passed the Common Charger Directive. The law mandated that all smartphones sold in the EU must adopt USB-C by the end of 2024, and it threatened fines of up to €2 billion for non-compliance. Apple, facing the prospect of a fractured product line and a direct hit to its accessory margins, announced a transition. On September 12, 2023, the iPhone 15 launched with USB-C. The change was global, not just for Europe, a move that acknowledged the economic reality of a harmonized supply chain and the futility of resisting regulatory force. Dr. Lena Zhou, a telecom policy analyst, summarized the standoff. She said, "Apple's Lightning holdout was never about technical superiority. It was about defending a royalty pool that no other smartphone maker could match." The Lightning era ended not with a voluntary embrace of open standards, but under the weight of external law. The shift to USB-C closed a chapter defined by proprietary control, margin protection, and a calculated resistance to industry convergence. The iPhone 14's launch in the United States replaced the physical SIM tray with eSIM-only activation. Apple described the change as forward-looking, promising greater reliability and a streamlined experience. For many, the reality was different. In the first week, the hashtag eSIMFail surged to 250,000 mentions as users reported failed activations and difficulties switching carriers, especially when traveling abroad. Unlike previous iPhones, where swapping a SIM card took seconds, the new process required carrier approval and remote provisioning, steps that gave Apple and its partners tighter control over device activation. Internal carrier negotiation documents later revealed that Apple secured $6 to $8 per eSIM activation, a recurring fee paid by US carriers for every device provisioned. Manufacturing costs dropped by 50 cents per phone with the elimination of the tray. One carrier engineer summed up the change. With eSIM, the power shifted, and users lost the last piece of hardware independence. A single drop can turn a $1,000 iPhone into a repair bill rivaling a used laptop. When Apple switched to glass backs with the iPhone 8, repair costs for a simple back panel soared from $89 on aluminum models to $199 for glass, a $110 difference per incident. Fragility was not accidental. Glass enabled wireless charging, but it also created a steady stream of high-margin repairs. In the first year after the switch, Apple Care Plus enrollment jumped to 22% of buyers, up from just 12% 2 years earlier. The company's MagSafe accessory line, built around the glass back, added $1.2 billion in revenue in its first year alone. Repair advocate Louis Rossmann put it bluntly, "It is not just about making phones look nice. It is about making sure you pay if you drop it." For Apple, every cracked back glass became a recurring source of income through repairs, service plans, and accessories. Today, each iPhone design shift is still framed as progress, while commercial interests remain embedded beneath the surface. As hardware choices drive record profits, user flexibility narrows. These were not mistakes. They were calculated decisions. The next innovation may be less about improvement and more about control. Share your thoughts below.